Yep, great. So I want to switch topics a little bit, and I want to, thanks Mike, appreciate that. I want to put on my HIA-LI cap, and I want Jack and Ed to sort of answer, sort of this question. Okay, so from the HIA-LI's perspective and the industrial parks perspective, we really have not had an effective partnership, really no partnership at all with the town of Smithtown over the years. It's been very difficult. And you're newly elected as the town supervisor, but you've been on the town board, and I think we've struggled, and Jack's sort of fought this fight, right? But we need partnership at your level, specifically with the town of Smithtown. So what can we expect, Jack, and what do we want now with our newly business-friendly elected town supervisor there from the town of Smithtown?
Well, to characterize that we've had no cooperation with the town of Smithtown in the past is a little bit unfair, because we've worked very well with the staff at the town of Smithtown. We've got David Flynn, head of planning, in our audience. His predecessor, Frank DeRubis, also worked with us.
Yeah, and I was referring to the elected level.
The elected level.
The elected level,
and that's why I want to clarify.
Yep.
The elected level, it's, I listen to John Kamen. One of the things that's good about Steve Malone, honestly, is Steve Malone will call you and ask you what's happening, any problems, what's going on. In other words, being hands-on and taking an interest without being dragged to the battle. In the case of Smithtown, we've got a good thing. Let's not get involved in it, and maybe it'll happen. Due to our HIA staff and our volunteers on the Government Relations Committee, we had to fight our own battle, honestly. When we wanted to have an entrance to the northern state, we fought our own battle. Ed Wareheim and I have known each other for a long time. He's been very responsive in every position he's held, both as a staff person or elected official. And I look forward to a very good relationship with the town of Smithtown. And I'll turn it over to Ed, where we can talk a little more.
Sure, thank you very much. First of all, I'm very pleased to say that I am not in the pension system, Mike, so I love appearing with you, because I'm really not. On that note, yes, Jack's correct. We intend to, and we've had these discussions before, we are going to be intricately involved with the HIA-LI. All members of the town council, as well as myself. We are going to put in place a business advisory council. We're working on the logistics of that now, and that's going to have many legs going out to the business district. For example, to Jack's point, we appropriated $300,000 in the 2018 budget. Just went over the capital budget yesterday for updating our codes. We will seek recommendations from the business community before we put those code changes in place. I think that's one of the missing parts that hasn't been done in the past. So we are going to. We do realize, I do, and I believe the town board does as well, that the HIA is the economic driving engine for the town of Smithtown. There's no doubt about that. And I've made that crystal clear, and I've been public about that in the past. I've also, through the election cycle, committed that I believe Smithtown is fiscally healthy. It's in great fiscal shape, and in large part that's due to my predecessor, and I applaud him for that. But I do think there are abilities for us to go out into the bond market and do more borrowing without necessarily hurting the tax base. I think that's very possible, and we're going to look into that as well. So we look forward to a very strong relationship, and it's about communication. And I'd just like to go back to your point about, and even though we're at the lower level of government, about transparency and how we make the folks that elect us confident. Another change that we made immediately, we put a public information officer in place in the supervisor's office, and I believe she's here today, Nicole Gargiulo. That position is vital, and it's vital because the public, the business community, and our residents, they're going to see and know every single thing Smithtown government does. Our board meetings are televised. We electronically put our agendas out prior to the board meeting for the public to see. But that position, the press and the public will have access to the public information officer. I think she's already put out about 20 press releases since January 1st. I think that's vital, and I agree with my colleagues that that is a way that you accomplish transparency, so everyone sees what we're doing.
And I'm very excited to hear that, and you and I have had these conversations, and I believe in that. And part of partnership means that we as the business community have to do our share as well, because I know nothing is more frustrating than for the electeds to take these initiatives and have nobody show up. So I can tell you at the HIA-LI level, with me as the chair of the board and Jack heading up our government relations committee and Terry as the president of the organization, you are going to have true partners to help you with your initiatives across the aisle here. It's what we want to do, because we know that sometimes you guys do have great ideas and nobody shows up to give you input about it. So we're really committed and focused to be able to doing that. I want to turn to taxes a little bit, right? So there's a few things going on across the country in taxes. And Mike, I want to start with you. So I think Tom raised the notion, and I agree with this notion, right? That a government has a CEO, and just like a public company, it has its board of directors, okay, and the legislature and the Senate, and its primary function is how do we get as much production out of the budget dollars that are coming in that benefit as many of our constituents as possible. I don't know where the hell we've ever lost that concept here in America, right? But it doesn't seem to be working that way. I'm going to be a little unfair to you because you are in the minority in the assembly. I'm going to be very fair to Tom because he's in the majority. Okay, but certainly at the state level, I think a lot of people are scratching their heads and saying, you know, the governor is coming out with all of these initiatives, right? And I'm not going to weigh in on them, good, bad, or indifferent. They're coming out with all of these initiatives, and where the hell are the Republicans in the Assembly and the Senate challenging them, coming out with new initiatives, and coming out with better ways to help support business and residents? So I'll pass that hot potato to you to begin with.
Sure. No, happy to catch it. Our conference has put out a platform and does every session of legislation.
Let me just start with this. So why don't we hear it, though?
Well, the media frankly ignores it because we are in the minority, and that's just the way Albany works. It's very hard. You've got to, you try to get out and speak to the press, speak to media sources, try to develop relationships so you can comment. I know in the issue of pension reform, I get calls from the media because I'm known as someone who advocates for the pension reform and changing the compensation model for elected officials. So they will reach out. It's one of the ways. I remember when I first got elected in 2002, Al Lama, whose father was a member of the Assembly, and is the Lama of Mitchell Lama Housing, and he spent many years as a young man, watching his father. And he says, when you get up there, he says, you won't like the minority thing too much, but he said everything else about the job you're going to love. And he's absolutely right. And one of the things I do love about the job is, and I enjoyed my years on the town council, where you learned, where the buck stops. That attitude is sorely lacking in Albany because you are much farther away from the taxpayer, so to speak. But you have a platform to advocate for certain issues. And that's what I've done. So mandate relief, pension reform is what I speak about. I am contacted by the press. They do, they'll follow your press through the central staff, not only where you get quoted, say, in Newsday or your local paper, but Buffalo News, Syracuse Post-Dispatch, et cetera, et cetera. I've had friends of my brother who live upstate and said, hey, they were talking about your brother's bill on the radio show up in Syracuse today. They mentioned your brother. So I know what I'm advocating for is getting, I had a great editorial in the Buffalo News for my mandate relief or my pension reform package. So getting that attention means you get a visit from the PBA lobbyists asking you, even though it's a minority bill and will die in committee, they want the bill pulled. And we had a nice conversation, and I respectfully declined their offer to pull the bill. Told them I plan to advocate for this in my next election, which got me $266,000 of negative advertising at me, but I still won. But I believe in these issues, and you have to, it's a tremendous platform to go out and advocate for this. So even though, we like to say in our conference, we win the debate, we just lose the vote. So I will use my voice, always will, to advocate for this change. And quite frankly, when you talk taxes, this new federal tax bill, ladies and gentlemen, I don't care what the governor says. I don't care what County Executive Malone says. I don't care what Lee Zeldin says. In the long run, this is going to be good, not only for New York, but the other 11 blue states that the governor pointed out in his budget message. They are not targeted. The federal government, in my view, is not assaulting New York or any other state here. Ladies and gentlemen, we've lost 1 million residents in the last decade. We've lost 2 members of Congress in the last redistricting, and we are going to lose 1 more. We are in a state of decline, quite frankly, in terms of our power in Washington. We're no longer the 3rd largest state. We're now 4th, supplanted by Florida, all right? So when you talk taxes, for years, the SALT deduction has allowed blue states to avoid reality. That's no longer the case. So when you talk taxes, you've got to stop the evasive budgetary tactics that we're famous for here in New York, the underreporting of liabilities or undervaluing liabilities, using debt to pay off debt, skipping pension payments. That's not an issue here in New York, it is in Jersey, but we allow borrowing to pay pension payments. Suffolk County is about, what, $350 million in debt?
Yeah, we're going to get to the
their
county
pension
in a minute,
obligations.
yeah.
So this is, when you talk tax policy, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, we have exploding public employee costs. All the money is in labor. You can do all the shared services you want, and I applaud that effort, but you're nibbling around the edges, and everybody knows it. You have to deal with compensation issues. And that means you've got to go to a defined contribution platform for new hires outside of police and fire. You've got to tweak Triborough. When these teacher contracts expire, you have to suspend these automatic escalators, 3%, on top of a negotiated agreement. And quite frankly, you need a 2% hard cap on binding arbitration awards.
Right. So I just want to switch to Tom, and you know that I love you dearly, but I gotta get this off my chest. When we had the Republican majority come in, and we were told that the Republican Senate was going to be the firewall to keep Albany in check. Okay. The business community is pretty disappointed. All right. It seems that the governor, again, I'm not going to weigh in on the pluses or minuses of what his policies are. That's for you guys to sort of debate. But it seems like the governor is rolling out aggressively his platform, okay? And the business community is the continuous pocket that is going to be funding these things. And again, to just say my own personal disappointment, the governor came up with an innovative workaround now for the tax plan that he came out. I don't know if it's going to work or not work, right? And it talks about administrative burdens on business and going in the pockets of employers. And the Republican response was that might work. And it's sort of like frustrating and outrageous that we don't have, it appears, strong advocacy at the Senate level that's pro-business. So perhaps in terms of leadership, like where are we headed with that?
Well, first off, that wasn't my response to the budget proposal. And you're right. Individual members, and again, my background is you go into the boss's office or you sit around with your colleagues, you discuss items, you give your opinion, you give your strong opinion, you give your really strong opinion, and then a decision is made. I can tell you that as somebody who did everything short of set himself on fire on the Capitol steps to prevent the $15 minimum wage, and would not relent until there was a trigger and a study to ensure that we don't get crushed even further. I think that's something that we could have been more effective in. I believe if we stand up as a majority, I believe we have solutions to make the corporation better. Right, so everyone is not going to win on both sides. You're not going to get everything you want. But we can't govern from election cycle to election cycle and think that we're going to have a healthy economy in this state. We can't govern from core constituency and demographic group and business groups that we like and don't like and think that we're going to have a situation where people want to stay in New York and young people want to work here because the jobs are here, or the streets are safe because you don't have MS-13 running around. So unless we make a firm decision as a majority or as individual members that you're going to call it like you see it, and the call it like you see it has to be based on ground truth, which means your members have to be out there and understand what's going on in their districts. And the members that I serve with certainly do. We need to have that kind of voice. I believe that what the current budget that was proposed is just, it's a non sequitur. I mean, we have to start with something else. And long before the federal tax implications, there was a problem looming. It wasn't caused by this recent tax bill. We need to really look at, again, cutting in places that maybe doesn't feel right, but in the long-term health of our economy and the long-term health of the state is going to be good. In this budget, take the fiscal stuff out of it. There's a 21% cut in Homeland Security, in Department of Homeland Security Emergency Services in the state. I don't understand that. Anyone feel safer than they did last year in this country? I don't believe so. I know we're not safer. So I plan to be a very strong advocate. And I've always been a strong advocate. But in the end, it has to be as a group, as a whole, as a conference.
Right.
Joe, in your office, in your conference room, we've been holding meetings with an ad hoc coalition of business groups, the HIA being one of them. We have started an organization called Make New York Affordable. We're going to address a lot of the issues that the two Toms and Mike just brought up, and we're going to be a lobbying and communications group to make sure that those issues are addressed. At the next HIA board meeting, this will be discussed, and the HIA board will formally decide whether the HIA should take part in that group. I think it's an important group. I think we have a responsibility in addition to our elected officials. We have to make the community, the media, and the elected officials aware of the problems we've discussed here. I think that the concept of having a roundtable give and go conversation is very important. I think the next step is the HIA, which has always been an action group, has to take part in making sure that these issues are addressed, and they're addressed by the state Senate, and they're addressed by the Assembly. This is a crazy time of year. Everybody in New York State is running for president, and some of the concepts coming out are great. I like the third rail, as long as I don't step on it to get electrocuted. And the trouble is, there are numerous other issues that have to be addressed. And I think that the HIA's responsibility, and Joe, you have a very forward-looking law firm, you think like lawyers, but you act like businessmen. That's a great, to your credit. But we will take part as part of this ad hoc coalition. You'll be hearing more and more of it. Make New York affordable, assuming that the HIA board approves it. Doesn't cost us any money.
Yep, and that's great. And I sat in on that initial meeting, Jack, and it's a great initiative that you guys are launching there. So, John and Tom, turning to the county, and I will say that from an HIA-LI perspective, County Executive Bologna has been a very good friend. You know, the sewer systems that you touched on have been incredibly helpful in development. You know, sewers are gold now. The development is everything, and we appreciate that, you know, really well. But as county residents, you know, we're aware of the challenges fiscally that the county is having at this time. And there's a lot of reasons. We understand retail has declined significantly, sales tax revenue has declined significantly, right? And we, as a business community, just want to understand how the county is addressing those challenges without it being that it's going to be continuing to reach in business people's pockets. So I'd like to hear from both of you on that. John, if you want to start, and then Tom will get to you.
So, yes, County Executive Balone certainly has been a great partner and will continue to be so. That partnership extends to the governor, and I would disagree with the characterization of the governor and New York State. The governor, I believe, is fighting for lowering taxes. He would argue in his State of the State that taxes are lower than they've been in 50, 60, 70 years. There's so much more to do. He takes, and the state takes, significant dollars and reinvests them in Long Island. We, in Long Island, give so much more to the state than we get back, and so that's only fair. All of us certainly know that. We give $23 billion more to the federal government than we get back. The cost of government, governing, is what's really expensive. We talk about the pension and all these other things that we're frustrated with. I mentioned PBA and teachers, but we have a lot to protect here in Long Island. We have an extraordinary, valuable asset in our homes, our communities, and we have the finest police in the country defending us, and that costs money. And the PBA fights for them, and we have to go back and forth with them. And I, as chair of NIFA years ago, took on that fight for Nassau County, and I'm working now here in Suffolk on it. We have the best teachers in the country, some of the best schools, up and down the line in Suffolk and Nassau County, and the teachers cost money, and it's a worthy investment, so I don't know that they're the enemy. Healthcare is one of the biggest driving costs of what we pay for today, and yet we have the best doctors and nurses, and so we're paying for that, but we're also getting some of the best service and living healthier and living longer than we've ever been before. So all these pieces that we're frustrated with are also the things that are giving us confidence and success, and it's who we are. The biggest industry in Long Island now is the medical industry. And that's who's paying the most taxes. That's where the most jobs are. And so whether it's teachers, cops, or nurses, or doctors, yes, we need to be careful how we spend money on them. The county needs to make sure that we are looking for those partners at the state level and the federal level, challenging what's going on with the way taxes are now going to be working going forward. We are not the problem. We always look at ourselves and say, it's all us in government. But the we is we. We're an extension of you, the people. We demand a lot in this region. Steve Balone and the government and the legislature, both sides of the aisle, are set on passing rules and laws and goals that make sure that we're doing things so you have confidence that we're not wasting your money, and that almost is the same answer to this question as it was before. But we need to take dollars and reinvest them in business like we did with the sewers. It's the things that people don't always see that help your business thrive. We have a utility, PSEG, that was born out of the LIPA debacle, and now we have a utility that's growing in people's confidence as well, and they're investing and reinvesting, and the governor led that, and I think people are seeing that they can have faith and confidence in utility, and that's a cost that is an investment as well. And so we're looking at all the pieces of how we govern, the things that go underground, the wires up above, the investment in the local governments and how we work together, partnering with our state. That's what's going to help us navigate this challenging time.
Tom?
So, I hate to say it, but to me that sounded more of sort of like an excuse than an answer to the question, honestly, John. We are in dire fiscal condition in Suffolk County, dire fiscal condition. In 2000, and there are multiple facets to it. In 2003, our required contribution to the New York State Pension Fund was $13 million. Our general fund property tax levy is $50 million. This year, we have exceeded $300 or $350 million of pension debt for prior year's pension obligations that we couldn't afford. So over the last several years, we have borrowed in excess of $300 million to fund pensions in Suffolk County. Now, you say, all right, well, how does that really impact me? We're in excess of $2 billion of debt in Suffolk County, aside from the pension debt. How does that impact us as residents? Well, when your debt service, the amount of money that you have to pay every year to fund the interest and payments on the principal on that debt begins to exceed, $100 million, and your your general fund property tax levy is $50 million, you can bet that services are going to suffer. We have to do a lot better job in the county, and we have to do a lot better job in the legislature of controlling expenses and controlling borrowing. We cannot continue to kind of put our heads in the sand and fund program after program after program and ignore our deficit, which is in excess of $120 million annually. We have to start from, in my view, at least, we have to start from the premise that we have finite resources. And if you believe the survey that came out recently, that we have 71% of young people who are going to be leaving Long Island in the next 5 years, those resources are going to continue to decline. And we have to be honest about that. And we have to deal with that and not just kind of ignore it and hope somehow it goes away. So we'll be focused on that this year. But it's, I sort of laughed in disgust to myself when I saw that Governor Cuomo was looking to sue the federal government after the tax proposal passed. And I thought to myself that, why don't you spend some time thinking about the hundreds of millions of dollars of unfunded mandates that you foist upon Suffolk County taxpayers before you start worrying about spending money suing the federal government.
So what I want to do, Ed, is I want to ask you one specific town-related question, okay, and then we have to wrap up, and then I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes to sort of wind down, okay. But Ed, one of the challenges, and you and I have talked about this, is infrastructure spending, right, and reliance on other levels of government. So we're talking about private-public partnerships, but intergovernmental partnerships are also incredibly, important. And so talk about for your term, your first term here as town supervisor, how you intend to help the infrastructure and what reliance you need on the folks you have sitting around this table as well.
Sure. Well, some of this has already been started. In the state budget, as probably everybody knows here, there was $40 million appropriated, $20 million for sewering of the Kings Park Business District, $20 million for Smithtown. At the January 9th board meeting, we passed the alienation bill, home rule message. We're going to send it up to Mike and Senator Flanagan. They've kindly offered to try and get it passed at the beginning of the session rather than wait till the end. And if they're successful at that, we'll be beginning, that was the last piece of the puzzle, the funding's there, the engineering is done, so we should be pretty set to go in Kings Park with that project. And that's all related to the downtown business revitalization. In St. James, we just bonded on the January 9th meeting $2.3 million to replace water mains. We have $2.4 million in place after the water mains go in to completely repave Lake Avenue in St. James, put all new sidewalks and curbing in. So that infrastructure is ready to go. The problem in Smithtown is a little more long-term due to the fact that we are looking at a number of properties, but we have to site a plant somewhere in Smithtown. Kings Park is taken care of by the county disposal plant on St. John Road, so that's okay, but in Smithtown, we're going to have to site a plant. We're looking at a number of properties now to bring to the county to see if it's acceptable to the county to be place a sewer plant in those locations. So the infrastructure is very important, and we have those particular projects in place. So what's important to us is, as you said, Joe, we are going to have to rely on higher levels of government to help with that. Can't do that at a local level. County Executive Balone gave us $200,000 slated for downtown business revitalization. We used $167,000 of that for the county and Vision Long Island's plan. This company is going to combine those two plans, and that will be the plan, master plan for business revitalization in the business district in Kings Park. The other $37,000 that we used of that is for market analysis, which is complete, and that will be presented at the January 25th board meeting. So Yes, we're going to have to rely on our higher levels of government as best we can, but we will do our part as well. We have, as we spoke many times, and as well as I spoke with Jack, we have we're about 92% developed in the town of Smithtown, but we do have some valuable properties that have been laying fallow for years. Just since the first of the year, Smithtown Concrete Plant, for example, that's been laying fallow for years. It's an entrance to Smithtown, going to points west. Undesirable looking, it's obnoxious looking. CarMax has come in, and we are in the final stages of approving that application, and they're going to build a brand new facility there. Something I'm very pleased with. Yesterday I met with the folks from Tesla. They are very interested in coming into Smithtown. We had a very productive meeting to take over a blighted shopping center. It used to be called 6th Avenue Electronics. It's on the corner of 347 and Jericho Turnpike. They're going to take that whole facility over. And we met yesterday. It looks like that project's going to go through too. And that's how we take care of ourselves with that commercial tax base, which is important at a local level. But again, we certainly need our partnerships with the county and state level officials as well.
Yeah, that's great, and that's really exciting stuff. It's really exciting. So let's stick with you. 1 minute, guys, each, please, to say anything on any subject that you weren't able to talk about. And I got to keep the time tight, but Ed, we'll stick with you at the final 1 minute 1 minute shot.
Sure. Well, again, it was a pleasure being here. I'm excited about the future. As I said in the beginning, we have many projects that are on the boards that have been sitting. I'm going to make sure that we take action on those. Another great initiative is on Northport Road in Kings Park. We've begun a project with FC Barcelona from Spain. They are the largest soccer organization in the world. We've met with their principals. Construction's underway for a $60 million facility right in the heart of Kings Park. So there's a lot of interest in Smithtown. I just believe, and it's probably the main reason I ran, was that these things were on the boards but not being acted upon. And myself and the board and our department heads are going to go to work, and we're going to act on all of them, as well as getting deeply involved with the HIA.
Great, thank you. Tom?
Thanks. Pleasure to be here with all of you, and thanks everyone for coming and listening to us today. No doubt we have daunting challenges in Suffolk County, and no doubt we have differences between Republicans and Democrats. As a Republican, as a minority leader in the legislature, I believe that we shouldn't spend more than we have. But I don't want to leave everyone with the impression that we don't agree on anything. And in fact, we have done some great work together on a bipartisan level in Suffolk County. We are all, to a man, to a woman, trying to address the opioid epidemic that we have here in Suffolk County. That cannot go without mentioning. Too many of our children are dying from heroin overdoses. We've done some great work on the environment together. I am proud to sit with the county executive and with my colleague, Presiding Officer Dwayne Gregory, on the board of the Suffolk County Land Bank, which is putting millions of dollars of property back on the tax rolls that had been tax delinquent for years. Properties that have been environmentally contaminated are being cleaned up. We're improving communities by fixing blighted properties. So there are things that we're doing together. We have disagreements. We'll continue to disagree, and we will continue to agree on things. We'll work together in partnership to try and improve the quality of life here in Suffolk County.
Thanks, Tom. Jack?
Quickly, whatever it takes, the HIA will step up to the plate like it has in the past and do the job. When we needed an entrance and exit to the northern state, we worked with Town of Smithtown, Mike Fitzpatrick's father, and his law partner, Ira Block. Took us approval from the state to get permission to open the exit, start our own taxing district. We paid for the district, the HIA did. And we have the exit and entrance. It improved the infrastructure immensely. Similarly, when there was as you said, Joe, the LIPA, LUCO debacle, the HIA started a coalition of environmental, residential, and business groups to fight that deal. Of course, Newsday was against us. Every time they wrote an article saying that we were doing the wrong thing, we knew we were doing the right thing, and the HIA spent $300,000 of its own money. People predicted we would go bankrupt, to make sure that some of the inequities of that deal would be straightened out. We warned the county that there would be problems. Unfortunately, our prediction came true. We will continue to work with government, both on a supportive basis and, if necessary, come up with the financing and our own methodology in order to accomplish things on behalf of the community.
Great job, Jack. John?
Thank you, and thank you to HIA. Steve Ballone again regrets he couldn't be here. But Steve Ballone is committed to obviously Suffolk County, but he's committed to the business community, he's committed to HIA. Teresa Ward and the IDA who are here, Teresa's here and her team, investing tens of millions of dollars back into the business community, back into our community, partnering with our towns. And we know and understand that we need to work with people on both sides of the aisle. Certainly the legislators who we understand and appreciate are all working diligently to make this work, to make government work. We want to do everything that's possible to give everyone in this room and everyone throughout this county confidence that we are spending their money wisely. And that entails understanding how government works, how the money flows. We're a $3 billion a year government. 50+ million comes in through property taxes. So $1 billion a year through sales taxes. There's problems that exist, but we don't want to dwell or focus just on one area and think that complaining about it or pointing out how our personal limitations are really what's causing the problem. There are real challenges here. Infrastructure is incredibly costly. Making things work in a way that meets our collective satisfaction is a challenge, but we aim to do it because this is an extraordinary place to live. It's a worthy investment. Suffolk County will continue to invest the dollars through partnerships with the state and the governor, which is real, through the legislature, the Senate, the Assembly, and through our county legislature, and through our towns and villages and all the districts, including our schools. And together with the business community, we expect we will have greater success. We will face challenges, but I think the future does look bright, and thank you for being part of that.
Great. And I just want to echo what a great partner the Suffolk IDA has been to the HIA-LI as well. Really great, true partners, so that's very much appreciated. Mike, 1 minute.
Thank you, HIA. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. New York was a high-tax state. The federal government didn't make us a high-tax state. New York made itself a high-tax state. The federal tax bill is a blessing in disguise and will force state and local government to deal with reality. The short-term pain some may experience, I think, is in our best interest in the long term. There is an upcoming Supreme Court case, ladies and gentlemen, I think you all need to be aware of, because that, combined with what is happening with federal tax reform, could end up turbocharging economic growth, or at least making New York State more competitive. And that is the Janus decision. It is a public employee in the state of Illinois filed suit against AFSCME over the agency fee provision. This individual chose not to join the union, but he is mandated by Illinois law, and in New York, there's also a mandate by law that if you don't want to be in the union, you still have to pay the union dues. It's called an agency fee. If that decision is overturned, that precedent is overturned, unions will continue to exist, but they will be forced now no longer be able to take their membership for granted and the revenue that comes in. They will be forced to offer value for the 3% or so that they take from their members. And you will see people leave that union because they will want that 3% in their own pocket. Now, the union argument against this, they will say they become freeloaders. Nothing could be further from the truth. Why? Because state law grants that union exclusive rights to bargain on behalf of that labor force. And that provision, and that kills that argument. So this particular case that's going to be argued in February with a decision coming down in June, that is very significant, not just for New York, but California, Illinois, and the other high tax states. So that, I think the future is bright, change is coming, and I think some of the interest groups that have enjoyed a very comfortable relationship in Albany and elsewhere are in for an awakening, because what can't go on won't go on, folks, and we've reached the end of our rope financially as a state and local government.
Great. Tom, you got the last word.
Well, thank you all for coming today. To Joe, to Jack, and to the board, thank you all for having us. It's always a privilege to be here, and congratulations to Ed, who I believe has one of the toughest jobs in government anywhere. Ed, just to let you know, John and I are members of a former supervisor self-help group. You're more than welcome to join. We have very good conversation.
Well, thank you. I'm going to call on both of you.
Listen, we have great relationships in government across the aisle. I don't doubt that. But everyone in this room is blessed with common sense. At the waning days of our session last year, with all the things that we had to think about, on the day there was a terrorist attack in Michigan, someone entered this country illegally, we were debating things like a bag tax, and we were debating whether or not we should rename a bridge. And that is not, I think, the priorities of the people that I represent. We should be focusing on what's coming. The budget presentation I heard said in order to combat a huge federal tax burden, what we're going to do is raise your taxes by at least $1 billion that I can find. They're still combing through the budget, or more. I don't understand that. My common sense light goes off. I didn't go to Wharton. I didn't go to Harvard. I went to public school, and then I went to college to public school. But I did go to law school. Maybe they made me a little smarter, and that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how we're going to survive in an environment where we don't have common sense about the things that matter in our districts and to this state. And we're never going to have an environment where we can continue to grow and flourish and be the empire state if we play these games and we govern by election cycle and we govern by personal process or personal preference of what sectors of society should be successful and what sectors are going to get punished for being in New York. I go back to session next week. You may sense that I am not shy about my opinions with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, but again, it's going to take you all letting your elected leaders know what exactly the ground truth is and what common sense is in order to make this work. And I look forward to hearing from you.
Great. And I want to thank everybody here. I mean, you guys are all very honorable, hardworking folks, and we're very comfortable that we can all and work together to help solve these problems. I want to echo Jack's sentiment that the HIA-LI is here as a business partner and resource for all of you. We welcome collaboration, we welcome input, and we're going to insist that you take our meetings and listen to our concerns of our members so that we can all build a better Long Island and New York State together. So thank you, everyone. Thanks to all of our members, for coming and being here. With regard to the questions, I'm getting the big hook. We're out of time, unfortunately, and that's my fault. What I'm going to do is circulate the questions that we got to you folks, get answers, and circulate them back out to the membership so that we can get the questions answered. I thought we had more time, but we don't. So that's how we're going to handle the questions. Thank you, everybody, and we look forward to working together to make 2018 fantastic.